are oppressed. We are exploited. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
How great I am.
If you're some man of the rock,
You want first place, come play with me. You want second place, go somewhere else.
Let us sing forever. Let us play forever.
Wake your ass up. Awaken the beast inside.
Ways.
What are you saying, ladies and gentlemen? We are the realest podcast in the world. I'm Osama,
My name's Mohammed.
and it's about to get real.
Now, everyone that's listening to the episode, thank you so much for the love and support. We really appreciate it. For today's episode is a topic that's very, I want to say confusing, but at the same time, it's not easy as far as that transition, that skill, the adaptability, and the concept we're talking about is all about learning how to compose your emotion. And this is a topic that is very interesting, Osama. The reason why I say this is because composing your emotions, obviously that's a good thing, right? Because you learn how to compose your emotions, obviously under strenuous situations, whether good or bad. But the other side that I'm thinking about it is that composing your emotions might be a bad thing because you might limit yourself from obviously expressing how you feel in that moment that needs to be genuine, that needs to be sincere, honest to that other person or group that could obviously alleviate the situation that's happening at hand. So there's pros and cons to composing your emotion. Now, obviously, there's a huge historic thing going on versus the Roe versus Wade thing in America. And we're not going to really talk about it. But when it comes to composing your emotions, I think, what do you think when it comes to politicians? Do you think they're good at composing their emotions? And why?
Honestly, it's actually interesting you asked me that, because I think politicians, when they're talking to people, they're addressing the people, for lack of a better word, yes, they know how to compose their emotions because they're in power. Now, when it comes to addressing their agenda and getting what they want done, they have trouble composing their emotions because they have to go deal with Parliament, or like for America's Congress, and obviously have the Senate. And then it's like you get heated up because it's like this needs to get done. Obviously, we're not going to get in too much to it. Obviously, as you said earlier, abortion, and obviously there's an agenda that got done and obviously did, and it's getting worse by the minute. However, these politicians, they know what they're doing. And I think you said two beautiful things. Sometimes it's good to let out your emotions, and sometimes in certain scenarios it's not good. So when I believe the government's provoking you, I don't think it's good to retaliate back. If you're gonna talk back, make sure you're coming from an educated standpoint, and you are speaking wisely, because anything will be held against you these days, especially now with Canada, Bill C-11. Now all the censorship, which by the way has been happening for a while. But I think when it comes to composing your emotions, and we could talk, we're talking about politics. Any law that the government does is not always going to affect. It will not always affect everybody, but sometimes it will affect you. And you have to come to realization that it's better to give an educated answer versus an emotional answer. And in that point, I believe, because yes, your emotions are important, but once you give an emotional answer when it comes to something political, they got you, because that's what the politicians want. You have become weak in their eyes now.
And I think that's what you said perfectly. Like you hit on the head at the end, that you become weak in their eyes, because as a politician, one of the first things you're taught is not to show emotion at all. It's like the concept of being neutral. Like you have to have that variance across all factors, all issues in a society that you're governing over. And the better you are at doing that, like you said, the more you're able to push your agenda, get your goals across, and obviously try to enforce that influence over the group of people to gain more power and position as you go along in your future in the political world. And I think because of that, composing your emotion, it's such a powerful thing if you know how to use it right. Now, morally, is it good or bad? That's a whole nother debate, because composing your emotion, obviously at work, if your boss is being rude to you, is just very rude to you, your coworkers, or mistreating you or harassing you, obviously that's like a different situation. Sometimes it might need to come to a point where you have to let the person know how you feel. But obviously there's other things in place, such as HR, supervisor, management, or a boss that takes place and policies to handle these situations. Okay, let's make this easy. When it comes to composing your emotion, I think it's important because humans, number one, we don't know how to express our emotions because we don't deal with our emotions firsthand. So since we do not take the time to understand our emotions, how to deal with it, how to interact with it, how to make it rise or decrease in levels, when something happens and we react emotionally, trouble always ensures. It's a chaotic element. It's a chaotic situation. So I think that's where composing your emotions comes into place. Like the last episode, Kareem, like, is a perfect illustration of that. The fact that for the past 5 years, he was a person trying to find out who he was, going to different influencers, watching their videos, wasn't getting the credible information. It wasn't until he had to sit down with himself and really figure out his emotions and what made him happy, what made him sad, and all these things. And going through that, he kind of evolved and became this new person with this insight that I know who I am. The fears I had before and this bully that this was like this worst version of me has no power over me. So therefore, I'm a new Kareem, and I'm also composed in my emotions because I know what that power could have over me to make me such a bad, fragile, or just a sad individual at any given moment. And I think that's like a beautiful example.
I have a question for you. What would you?
Yep.
How would you tell someone who's, I guess, our age right now, who's having trouble, who's expressing his emotions in the wrong, he or she's expressing their emotions in the wrong way? Like they're always getting angry.
That's a good question. Yeah. I think number one is expression. Number one, like, you need to express that stress in such a positive environment. It's environment, number one, because obviously what you're going through, the fact that you're going through it, number one, sucks. Number two, you're putting yourself in an environment that's not conducive for you to grow. So most people, when things are happening, they always resort to that environment where there's bad friends, where there's a bad area, where there's a bad like scenery that's always going to put them in a negative state of mind. So you have to remove yourself. You have to isolate from that place that's only making you have bad thoughts, bad scenarios, and also bad actions as well. Because those things do not allow you to grow. So you have to remove yourself, put yourself in a situation where you're around positive people, positive influences, and positive feelings and scenarios in a positive environment. While doing that, at the same time, when it comes to composing your emotion, you have to talk with someone that's either good at dealing with their emotions, actually not good, a master at dealing with their emotions, so therefore they can tell you and listen to you and understand you as far as your story, what's going on, and they can pinpoint the guidelines and directions that's needed for you to obviously grow. Because once you know that this emotion is affecting me in my work, personal relationship with my family, anything else, then obviously you have to fix it. Because if you don't fix it, things are only going to get worse. And if you know how to fix it, you know how to compose your emotion, whether something might happen in the future. And if you don't do that, you're always going to be in a state of mind that's angry, regretful, and just annoyed by society. And no one wants to live like that.
Well, I want to add on to your points by asking another question because I love your answer. Is there ever a way? Is there ever a way where you can express your emotions in the wrong way? And why do people do this? And are they aware that they're doing this?
Yeah, it happens all the time. And the funny thing is most people come to realize that they could have done it better. And once again, that's when you don't deal with your emotions. If you don't take the time to invest in your emotions, knowing what makes you happy, know what makes you sad, you're going to express your emotions in the worst of ways because you don't know how to deal with them internally. So most time, people express their emotions during an argument. during your fight,
Yes.
or when they get fed up when something might happen and they just snap and they're just going off for whether 1 to 2 minutes at that person or group. That's what usually happens. Someone might be annoyed and it's as if you're poking the bear. After a few number of times, that person is just going to become so angry, might fight someone, might just start screaming, insulting, just getting all that energy out, all that negativity out, as opposed to going through that same situation and being like, okay, I need to leave because this is not good for me and I know what might happen if I continue to stay here. So I have to really talk to someone or really reflect onto why I'm feeling this way. And also I could talk to the person or group one-on-one to let them know, like, hey, what you said was not right. I don't respect it. Like, there's so much different ways to handle ourselves during internal conflicts. Like, there's a great book called Conflict Conversations. It's an amazing book because it teaches you how to have peaceful dialogue, peaceful actions during intense moments. Because, like your question, if you do not know how to handle yourself during the fire, then how can you expect someone to remain cool at all times?
Go back to your last point. I do believe emotions are highly important, yet you need to take a step back because sometimes we're in, let's think first. Let's give two examples. First example is music. Music can be subjective. Like, obviously, the way you feel about Drake, the way you feel about Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, the list can go on. Sometimes you'll get mad. Like, for example, like, we know, I know I'm a huge Drake fan, and I know there's people who are bigger Drake fans than I am, and sometimes they get triggered when you say something about that artist because they're like, or even Kendrick Lamar, because they're like, how dare you say it? Because you have an emotional connection to that person. Now, when it comes to objectiveness, this is where it's smarter. You need to ensure that when you're talking to someone about something you care about, that you have your facts. Like, for example, religion. You cannot get mad and start saying emotional facts because you need to have your facts right and correct, and you cannot be making a mistake. Because what can happen when you get when your emotions get the best of you, you will make a mistake. Because you're so into the moment that you're forgetting what you're saying, that you're forgetting who's around you. It's almost as if when someone in Hollywood gets the glare of the bright lights. Similar analogy. Right now, obviously, Will Smith is the perfect example. And you know what's funny is, like, in the speech he said, that's actually a beautiful point. In his speech he said, oh, you know, in the highest point, the devil gets the best of you. First of all, you want to say something? Yeah, I was just going to say, like, after he slapped Chris Rock, in my head, I'm like, you already did the bad judgment. And it ruined the moment of you winning that award. For example, like, let's go back even further. World Cup 2006, when France lost to Italy. Had France really won, I don't think Zidane would have been appreciative of that moment after what he did. It sucked, too, because, like, a lot of people wanted France to win. It was last World Cup. He should have won it. Drake, let's go back to him calling out the Grammys in, I think, 2019 or whatever it was, because he felt a certain way. In my head, I'm like, you could have really called that Grammys in one of your songs, which probably would have, like, sent a message regardless. But now, with all due respect, now, like, they cut you off and they made you look like an idiot. So there's so many ways of controlling your emotions, and I think I want to come down to the point where, and we're all guilty of it. Sometimes me and you, or even other people, we get the best. It happens to the best of us, and but it's a learning experience.
And beautiful examples, beautiful points, and 2006 World Cup is like Zidane. Like, if he didn't headbutt the other player, they would have won, and that player did it on purpose. Why? Because he knew he wouldn't be able to compose his emotion under such a big moment, under such a crucial time in the game. So I think the overall point is, people are going to come into your life, whether they have the intention or not, to make you lose your sense of self and also make you lose your sense of sanity. And while doing that, and how painful and how stressful that can be, you must learn how to compose your emotions, because if you don't, that comes at the risk, that comes at the fortitude, that comes at the legality of your career, your family, your legacy. There's so much to lose, all from one single split emotion, one single split second of retaliating, of reacting, of resorting to violence, physical, verbal means towards another person, all because they had the intention or not to make you lose your sense of self. And I think one thing I always do is reminders. Like, you always have to remind yourself that everything you're doing at any given moment is for, obviously, whatever you're working for. So whether it's your family, your friends, your family back home, like whatever it is, for God, for religion, like you have to remind yourself that what you're doing right now is bigger than yourself. And as soon as you're able to do that, and continuously able to do that, when things come, obviously, that might not make you happy, that might harm you or someone else, you still have that composure, because you know, like, hey, my friend getting into an argument with another guy, even though that guy said something out of line, out of pocket, and I know that my friend is going to step to him and fight with him, I should stop my friend from fighting, as opposed to me and my friend jumping in this guy. Why? Because even if this guy said something so wrong, or maybe this guy pushed him or something, guess what? Now with cameras, if someone's recording it, what are the people going to see? Me, my friend jumping some guy. As opposed to knowing the context of the situation, knowing how the person was insulting us for 30 minutes and all these different things. And even the police, what if the police has a implicit bias or racial bias towards that person because they're white? You think the police are going to care about what happened before? No. They're going to go off what they see from the footage or what eyewitnesses said. And guess what? You're getting arrested. And if you have a good job, or you're in school and you're not allowed to get any trouble, done. What are you going to say to your friend? Oh, my bad, bro. Like, it's too much. There's too much that we have right now to lose, just all because of someone or something just trying to throw you off for your sense of self.
You know,
it's not worth it.
But everything you said was like eloquently said, and there's one thing that really stuck with me. Kind of gave me a memory. One time last year during the pandemic, which is another topic we could talk about when it comes to emotions briefly. But during the pandemic, one time, it was me, you, and one of our other friends, and she got mad at one of her other friends for not knowing a certain celebrity. And this is not nowhere to lie.
Will Smith again.
Yes, Will Smith, to be exact. I guess we could share that part of information. But to be exact, in my head, I'm like, me and Mo were like, there's no way you're about to like stop being friends with someone because they don't watch the show. They never watched the show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like, it's like I know a lot of people who haven't watched it, and it's not because they don't. It doesn't cater to them. Because if you watch the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it caters to a certain audience. It's not going to cater to
other culture,
and the culture, exactly. If you don't like that kind of culture, kind of comedy, you're not going to watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because like you might find it offensive now.
And if you didn't grow up in that culture, you wouldn't understand.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So I remember
like
we
parked in another country.
I remember Mo was like, "Yo, can you just park the car? It seems like it's getting serious." And we're like, and Mo had said, "Like, are you really gonna stop talking to your friend after all these years because of one show?" And she's like, "Yeah." And we're like, I'm like, you know what we like Mo told us, like if I was in her place, I would just leave this car and never talk to her ever again because this is not something worthwhile to fight about. Sorry. And when it comes to emotions, you want to always relate it back to your like logic. And here's what I mean by that. Mo just said, if someone said something to you which was nasty, is it really are you really about to go put your life at risk? And God knows what that person has. And let's say as that person, as Mo said, the police officer, he's not gonna know what happened. And if he's biased and he's like, he's a racist piece of crap, yeah, you're done. You're gonna get charged. And all he saw was you attacking him. So it's kind of his word versus yours. Doesn't matter if it's cameras, they could just destroy that evidence. My thing is when it comes to evidence, I think a lot of us don't know when to use your emotions properly. Talking about TV shows and friends and music or whatever, it's just stupid. Yes, it gets the best of us, but let's be honest, it's actually dumb. You're wasting your emotions towards something dumb. Here's emotions when you can use them. We've been talking about a lot of negativity. Here's when you can use them. What if your friend was going through something down a bad hole? That's when it's okay to be emotional. If you've known someone for almost your whole life, at that point, logic is not going to work. Because the way you think, you cannot convince anybody else or force them to think the way you think. So now when emotions like, you get scared. It's almost as if when a mother or father loses their son, they don't start thinking logically, oh, well, he could have been on the bus. No, the emotions start kicking in, which is nature, which is, as you know, fitra in Arabic.
No, that's a good point because, like you said, that's a good positive example. Like you have to show emotion for that person because everything logically or rationally they don't care about because the situation's affecting them on the inside and they need a sense of support. So if you're able to offer emotion, once again, that is good. So there's a lot of beautiful examples where you offer emotion, whether someone is having a good time or a bad time. The point is you extend yourself as a branch, as a tree of support. So therefore, that person has something to lean on under the shade. So they know that they're protected, taken care of, and they're able to relax until it's time for them to leave. And I think like you said earlier, which is an important point, people don't know when to compose and don't know when to extend that support. And that's very insane because it's all about check marks. It's like we live our life every single day, Osama, right? And we go through hundreds of different situations. But at this point, as you get older, you see in certain situations accrued multiple times, whether good or really bad. So you know how it works. At this point, like if you're 26 or 27 and you have a group of friends, you know what needs to happen under like 5 to 10 different scenarios for a group fight to happen between two group of people or individuals. You know like what the setting needs to be, you know what kind of situation has to happen, you know what kind of environment, like you already know if you put this and this together, it might result in a fist fight. It might result in people throwing stuff. It might result in people insulting each other. It might result like you already know what's gonna happen, right? So it's just like we are already able to highlight the indicators of when something bad might pop off, but we somehow cannot highlight when to put that switch from composing our emotion. Actually, no, we don't know how to put that switch from extending that emotion to composing in such a given situation. Like we know, like, if this happens if this continues on for 5 minutes, it's going to be a huge fight. But we don't know when to put that switch. It's like, hey, now it's time for you to compose your emotion as opposed to letting it all out because it is not working.
That is so true. It's actually, if you think of it, like as us, day by day, it's actually insane how some people just have a trigger. They know something's about to go down because of what's like how they, the momentum is going. And some people love to add on because they know where the momentum is going. And you have some people who are obviously just, they don't care and they're not aware of their surroundings. But let's talk about the people who don't know where they're going and the people who do know where it's going. The people who don't know where it's going are using emotions to justify their opinion. So they're not even, I remember someone told me a quote, and this is the perfect quote. And this is going to, I guess, for me, kind of like clear my point. There's a difference between listening and hearing. Listening, you're trying to understand. Hearing, you're trying to respond. People who are emotional are always trying to respond. They don't even care what you have to say. You could have said the most intelligent thing ever, and they're just like, they already have a comeback. People who understand emotions and who know how to utilize it are listening. Okay, cool. And the strongest ones are the ones who are able to compose it. Like, I'm going to give a small example. Back in episode 2, we spoke about The Last Dance. One of the things that me and you mentioned was about Scottie Pippen. When he got bullied one time, he didn't show any emotion. The man used that anger to win the game. Right? Just a small example. Let's talk about another sports example. Kobe Bryant, when he was asking, you guys are up 2-0, he's like, job's not done. Doesn't let emotions bother him. Name a lot of people within that industry. I only name 2 athletes. I can name people who I know personally. Mo is one of them. Where when he's put under pressure situations, even me, he might be stressful. I just know that like he is gonna make a conscious decision because obviously That's what's right. And sometimes you are heated. We get the best of us. But look back at every single time you got heated versus every single time you compose your emotions. And which one were you, where were you more thinking clearly? Ask yourself that.
I love the Kobe example because he's already been through it multiple times. So he knows the amount of pressure, he knows the amount of work you have to put in between every night, the sleep, the focus, the practice, the drills, and watching film. Like, he knows what it takes to get 4 wins to win an NBA championship. He's been to the finals multiple times. So even when he's up 2-0 in a series, if you're a first-time person, you think it's over. You've already won. You're celebrating. You're booking that trip. You're pre-booking everything. You're bragging. You're losing your focus. You're losing your sense of self. If you're a media reporter, you're doing the exact same thing. But if you're someone who's been in the trenches, guess what? He's probably been in the position where he was up 2-0, end up losing the series. Up 2-1, end up losing the series. So all that pre-planning, or that future planning of just like celebrating and all that stuff, end up in results of you losing and you feeling like crap for the next 4 to 6 months and regretting on that for the next, actually your whole life. Because what I could have done better was compose my emotion, focus on the game, as opposed to thinking that the game is over. The game is over when there's a person raising up a championship. So until that happens, we're not celebrating anything. I don't care if I'm up 2-0 or 3-0. Anything is possible, right? And I think that's a beautiful example because just like in life, if you, I'm not saying it's bad to obviously see yourself in the future and under such good light, but at the same time, do not let that become such a habit to the point where it will distract you and blind you from reality, because sometimes things happen so naturally and at any moment something might change. So if you do not have that sense of awareness, being able to adapt at any given situation, you'll be the first person to be sorry and you'll regret that for the rest of your life. So I think, once again, until the job is done at any task that you have, small, medium, or large, you must make sure to have focus, intention, and compose your emotions to the best of your abilities. Because if you do not, and it's not done, and you end up losing that situation, only you hurt, and only you have to deal with that pain, and you have to figure out how to get out of that. And it's not an easy process.
I want to ask you a question. This is episode 114. Our first episode, we spoke about what to do during the pandemic. How do you feel people reacted at the beginning of the pandemic, the second lockdown in 2021, and now? Like, do you feel people? I just want to know, like, where like, how you feel people progress. If we're still complaining, like, where are we at?
So obviously the first pandemic, like anyone else, we had no idea what's going on because we never seen anything like this. We thought as if, like, you know, the world's coming to an end or something, because like so many people are getting sick and people are dying. Like COVID, man, the reaction to COVID when it first came out is something you can't even describe. Like, trying to recreate that feeling is the hardest thing on earth because we never felt that before, right? And going into the second lockdown was just more emotionally distraught and just harder, It's just like one of those things. It's like, man, we have to go through this again. So it just became more draining emotionally for a lot of people. And it was just like a sense of depression around society, right? And I know obviously we're doing episodes around that time, and we had episodes. You guys go back and listen to it on how to compose your emotion and how to stay in the fight and still adapt to what's going on and still try to have a positive sense of self, even though it's tough. So that was like the first one and second one. Now, everything is open for the first time. A lot of laws have come alleviated of mandates, the mask, and flights between countries. This is really the first time where everything kind of feels like it's normal again, even though we're not 100% there, but it feels so close to it. And everyone's relaxed. A lot of people are happy. Cases are still there, but it's very low in numbers. Yes, there is monkeypox, but it's very low in numbers, so it doesn't feel as threatening as COVID was when it first came out. So now I'm pretty sure, just seeing society, people's stories, reactions, and everything, people are so happy and so appreciative of the fact that we're able to live the way as we did before. I think that's my 2 cents on it. And obviously, some people just didn't care or had no remorse or didn't see the value in the first, second lockdown and opposed to now. So for them, are just selfish. Okay, like whatever, like give me back society. I could care less. So you're always gonna have individuals like that as well.
I agree with you 100%. I think when the first lockdown came about, as you said, I don't think anybody knew what the hell this was. And I think everyone was just scared. They're like, yo, because there was not that much information about it. The second time, I think, was the worst time because that's when it got really bad. Dude, I remember the day they put the second lockdown. I was with you in my car with our other buddy, and we were like, oh, we're going to lockdown. God knows how long this is for. And the beautiful part is though, if you look back, for the people who actually utilized, not a lot of people did, but if you like worked on something, like obviously we were recording, like you can even go back, like we were locked in, but you probably thought me and you were together the whole time because we were recording 24/7. But for me, personally speaking, I'm not sure about you. I think I was one of the few people who I was composed. I kept my emotions composed during Corona, because before that, we were going out a lot. It was like 3 to 4 times a week we were out. Me, you, Saw, my brother, your brother, like we were out a lot. Corona came in, bro, I was inside a lot. And being inside so much got me so comfortable just being inside at home. I'm like, even if I'm working on nothing, I would rather just be at home. So it got me much more in tune with my emotions. And by the way, we're not saying that you're not able to express your emotions, but express your emotions when it's correct and it's right, not things that are dumb. Like if someone goes to me and says, Drake is trash, do you think I'm gonna and he really meant that, he's trying to get the best of me? Do you think I got time to argue about why he's good? No, I don't care. All right, bro, like I like him. You don't, good for you. A lot of people will go out of their way to get the best of you, because once I said earlier, when we spoke about politicians, they want to make you weak so you no longer can think properly. Anything comes out of your mouth is BS. And once that happens, they're locked. You want to unify a country, you put your emotions aside. Because when I see Palestinian protests, Black Lives Matter protests, a lot of it's all political. Yes, there's emotions, but they're putting their emotions towards objective facts, which we kept mentioning. Like, yes, we're angry, but you're gonna hear our voices. They weren't screaming emotional stuff. They were screaming legitimate stuff. Go back to the George Floyd protests. Go back to the Palestinian protests. Yes, it sucks, but what sucks more is not them hearing your voice.
And that is the power of emotions, composing it, not composing it. And this episode, once again, we didn't cover everything, not every scenario, but we kind of gave you a good idea of what happens when you compose your emotions for the better, as opposed to letting out your emotions under circumstances that's not befitting for you, that only leaves you in regret. So there is good times and good measures when you're allowed to express yourself.
Exactly.
Even through politics and protests or any other sorts of forms. We've seen the world change in so much different ways where there's different mediums for people to share their voice. So obviously it works. It's very tangible how everything's interconnected and very intricate. But at the same time, it's good to distinguish between the two for yourself, because you are who you are and you live in the world where if you do not know what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy, how to compose yourself in a given situation versus not knowing how to share your reaction, which will not only harm you but leave you in a state of embarrassment, regretfulness, and stupidity, then clearly we as a society have to put in that work. Because if we do that, we only create situations and scenarios where less people are harmed, less people feel bad about themselves, and in turn, more people are alive, more people feel positive about themselves, and more people are able to learn from a situation on what to do so they could benefit themselves, their community, neighborhood, society, country overall. And that's how you have a better world, hopefully, God willingly. And that's how us at Ways, exact same thing like what someone said. We're not going to be able to compose our emotions 100% of the time, especially if we get bigger and you meet people and fans and all that stuff. It's all new. There's no manual on how to do this, but we pretty much know that we're willing to put in the work because we want to put in the work and we know the value in putting in the work. Long term, not just short term, fixed, like long term. And that's how we really create change, like impactful change for you guys to follow. Because obviously, if we want to be leaders, we got to put in the work. So you guys could see our actions, like Osama always talks about actions. So you guys know that holding us accountable, you're seeing that change because you're able to do it yourself because we've done it as well for you guys. And that's a beautiful thing about Ways.
Bro, I think we're just going to end it off there. This is a great way. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for always watching me and Mo. We appreciate it.
Peace. Have a beautiful day.
You guys thought we were done? I don't think so. We still gotta wrap it up. Please follow me at Kusa300. Follow my co-host Muhammad at Muhammad.global. Make sure to follow our page at Instagram. Also, make sure to subscribe to all our platforms. We drop every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Thank you. We'll see you next week.